All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new DC update, and I have grabbed quite a few things over the last couple of days. And I got to tell you, both Disney and Star Wars and Warner Brothers, so we'll say Warner Brothers and Disney, they are definitely keeping my channel busy with the stuff to talk about, because it is just amazing to me the missteps that these companies are making. And it's like they're doing it on purpose now, and they're not even trying to hide it. We're going to look at some stuff today that is just head-scratching. Absolutely head-scratching. But let's jump in. All right, so the first post I wanted to show you guys, this was a graphic that somebody put together, and this has to do with James Gunn's projects. And what's hilarious about this is everybody talks about how Zack Snyder doesn't have his job at Warner Brothers because he ruined DC and all this stuff, right? And that his movies were reviewed poorly. But then you pull up the reality of what James Gunn has done, and you look at these scores. It's freaking off the wall crazy. The only time he's had good scores, was with Slither and with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He's had more misses by a long shot than he's had hits. And the Suicide Squad was obviously not, and they don't even show that on here. The Suicide Squad by critics was reviewed well, and so was by the audience, but the fact is there wasn't much of an audience that saw it. And so it's some pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, this is just mind-boggling how he's got the keys to the kingdom. James Gunn anticipates that Superman will have the first LGBTQ couple in a DC movie and promises that it will be relevant to the plot. Of course, this is exactly why they have the authority in Superman, is for the representation. They're building it around the representation. They said, I guarantee you, they went into the Superman room and they said, the writer's room, and said, how can we do this, how we can get representation? And they built the story around that. It's not about servicing the story. It's about getting the representation in there. And that's what a lot of movies are doing. And it's not going to help the film. Now, the only good thing about this is that the authority has always had a gay couple in there, and it is actually part of the overall story, but that's exactly why they inserted them into the film. Now, when it comes to the Batman and people saying it was going to get canceled, James Gunn sets the record straight if Matt Reeves' The Batman trilogy is getting canceled. And he said, of course not. Now, this was his direct response. Hey, James Gunn, is the rumor true that Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2, including the trilogy, will be canceled? James Gunn responded and said, of course not, with the eye rolling. And so, but again, you can't trust what James Gunn says. You look at what he promised Gal Gadot and what he said about Ben Affleck, and he was not being truthful. So, again, what he says and does are two different things. This goes back to what I just mentioned. This has to do with the fact that James Gunn had told, based on Gal Gadot's comment, that she was going to be back. And someone posted, cannot wait to see what you're cooking up. That being said, the move to boot Cavill and Gadot, especially after they'd announced their return, doesn't inspire confidence. James Gunn responded, I'm not sure where you're getting that we booted Gadot or Gal. And again, this goes to say he says one thing and then something else happens. So, again, you can't trust what he says. All right, now there have been some photos released from the Superman set. And this looks like they're going, a lot of talk about this taking place in the 70s. I'm going to show you the 4 pictures that somebody took from the set. This is one of them. This is the outside of the building. This is for an appliance refrigerator place. And in a minute, you're going to see some of the wording here where it talks about hi-fi and stereo. The Daily Planet, bestsellers and favorites, available 7 days a week. And then the last photo, this is right next to the appliance refrigeration, just to the right of that. It says televisions, hi-fi stereos. And so it has numbers there. It's very interesting. If this is the aesthetically, the look, are they going to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s here? Like where is this taking place? Or is it going to be kind of an ambiguous thing where they don't really give you a time period? All right, so this is pretty crazy. This is one of the things I'm going to deeply, get into and get a deep conversation going on here. And it says the new DC Universe has a start date. This comes from James Gunn himself. It says Creature Commandos launches in December. The animated series kicks off James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC Universe. And we're also going to see here in a few minutes a little bit about where this show actually originated. Here is James Gunn, and this was a photo talking about Peacemaker Season 2, and you have Tim Meadows joining the cast. So again, it doesn't look like they're letting up on the comedy. They're going to be doing the comedy full force. Now, this is some pretty crazy stuff here. It says James Gunn had pitched Creature Commandos before he took over DC. Gunn then greenlit the project himself when he became the CEO of the DC studios. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? Something that was probably pitched to Warner Brothers and they passed on, but because he came in charge, he greenlit it himself. So this is something that probably would have never seen the light of day, under the regular Warner Brothers regime. And again, it's a project that not many people are going to be interested in. And they've already talked about it being a hard R and sexually disgusting and other stuff. And so the audience, again, on this, it's kind of a weird thing to launch your entire universe with this property. Also, it has been announced by Deadline that a Blue Beetle animated series is in the works. You fail upwards with Warner Brothers. This was the worst film in the whole DCEU, and it's the character that gets to continue. So let's talk about some of this stuff here. Now, here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing about Creature Commandos. It was also announced, and I thought I got a picture of it, but it obviously wasn't in my photos, and I take them in the order I grab them. So I showed them to you guys. As I get them and add them to my thing to show in the videos, I thought I had grabbed this one, but apparently I haven't. I didn't. It actually talks about, and James Gunn confirmed, that yeah, in Creature Commandos, some of those characters are going to be in Superman, his Superman film. How many characters are going to be in this freaking Superman film? It's not, I could safely say now that this is not a Superman film. He has way too many characters jammed into this movie. Characters from Creature Commandos, The Authority, Lex Luthor, Superman, all the people from the Daily Planet. Is this even a Superman film at this stage? Like, this is an honest question. Is it even a Superman film anymore? Guys, chime in below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I really don't see this going well at all. I don't think Creature Commandos is going to go over well. And here's what I'm going to predict this right off the bat. Creature Commandos is going to get an awesome score by the critics. It's going to. It's just predestined. It's going to get an awesome score by them. It's going to have all the crass, disgusting stuff that he's done in the past. Yeah. It's going to get an awesome score by the critics. The audience score is going to be the question, whether they like it or not. Like with Star Wars, the audience is now coming out in full force saying they don't like what Disney is doing with Star Wars. So we'll see how this ends up. But I don't see that going well. And then with the cheap factor of Superman, the Superman film just looks cheap from beginning to end. Everything from the casting to the look of the reveal of the costume to everything. It just looks cheap. It just looks cheap. All right, guys. Yeah, it looks like, what some people have commented, and I'm going to maybe start calling it this. It looks like a CW production. It absolutely does. There is nothing about anything that they've released so far that looks like high production value. It just doesn't. All right, guys, so what do you think about this recent news? Blue Beetle getting its own animated series. You got Creature Commandos, something green that James Gunn had pitched to the studio, didn't go forward, but when he became the head, he greenlit it immediately. Like, this is some crazy stuff going on. It's all head-scratching. It really is. All right, guys, what do you think about today's video? Please chime in below. If you haven't, give the video a thumbs up, and we will see you on the next video.